bluntly, if Trump gets to name a second pick to the Supreme Court, America is over. Done. Least Coast Radio. Joke about rising fascism in America and the fall of democracy, I really thought I was being, like, over the top.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus representing Staten Island.
I mean, like, all kidding aside, I'm a high school dropout. I never thought the words autocracy and kleptocracy would be in my vernacular. I just never thought that would be a thing.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus.
It's very, very difficult and frustrating to have progressive ideology living on Staten Island, or as I call it, North Texas. Example, your weed dealer pulls away and he's got a Trump Pence hat sitting on his back windshield. This is real life.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus.
The most important thing you can do for me listening to this podcast is to not get sidetracked with distractions and nonsense. There is a person occupying the Oval Office who has committed crimes every single day of his life. And the only way to combat this is not to look at polls. It's to go vote in November.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus. Representing Staten Island.
Want to hear a little story about some of those people who are going to be voting in November? I'll tell you. People that value guns over children. People who think the South will rise again. People that think ending slavery was a failed experiment. White nationalists.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island niggas still puffing dust plus.
Be a part of ending the rise of fascism and the fall of democracy in America by keeping it locked to East Coast Radio, Dyze in your house, and hit the polls in November. Hey yo, who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What goes on, peeps? What is the word? It is Friday. It is sometime afternoon and pre-evening, and I am coming to you with another action-packed edition of Dyze in your house on Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. If you don't know about Least Coast Radio, you need to go to your iTunes, you need to go to your podcast app, and you need to go to YouTube. You need to search for Least Coast Radio. And what you need to do is you need to, much like they do with burgers at a certain establishment, you need to smash that subscribe button so you can stay locked to all the latest and greatest J Parks podcast endeavors. That's not only weekly episodes of Dyze in Your House. We also have the long-form podcast, the J Parks podcast. That comes to you every Monday, courtesy of Andy Durr and the Durr Podcast Network. Now, what we do there is we go long-form. We go into this Russian stuff. We go into all of the criminality, all of the corruption. I mean, it's not normal corruption. Normal corruption is not happening anymore. No one's getting overpaid for a speech. None of that is happening. This isn't emails. Well, there are emails, but not those kind of emails. But, so that's what we do every week, Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. And we got more shows coming your way. Possibly other hosts. We got a summer to do this. So if you're interested in getting involved in Least Coast Radio, if you say, hey, I'd like to have a podcast, hit me up on Twitter at JPorks. We'll talk about it. We'll figure it out. We'll see if, there's room for all the least heard voices on Least Coast Radio. And I just want to grow my network. So if you can help me out and just smash that subscribe button, maybe give me a little star rating. It doesn't need to be a 5-star rating. Tell the truth. And you could also tell a friend about it. That would really help me out. But guys, let's take a step back for a second. This country is over, okay? Over. There is no way that you could allow this wannabe despot, orange orangutan cunt. You cannot allow this guy to name another justice to the Supreme Court. First of all, Mitch McConnell spent a year blocking Merrick Garland, over a year, because he said it was an election year. But this year is also an election year, and Mitch McConnell is going forward with gonna name a new Supreme Court judge. He's gonna hold a vote. We need to do everything in our power to block that. Now, I understand Democrats only have 49 seats. It's a very slim majority that the Republicans had, and they changed the rules themselves so they can get Gorsuch in. They changed it so you don't need the 60. You only need the majority, so you can have a tie and Mike Pence will just show up and sign it. This is unreal. Neil Gorsuch should not have been appointed. Merrick Garland was the guy. You could have put Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court, and you knew Kennedy was retiring because, Kennedy's kids and Trump's kids have been in constant contact for a long time. It's almost a back channel in a way. So, to say that, oh, this is just such a coincidence. No, it's not. Justice Kennedy is the most vain of any Supreme Court judge that there was. Okay? And he looked at Trump and he said, yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy that I want to choose my replacement. A replacement that, let's remind everyone, is a lifetime appointment. So let's just say, for instance, let's just say Trump wants to name, Rudy Giuliani or something to the Supreme Court. I think it needs to be a lawyer. That person's gonna be there forever, affecting not just our generation, not just this generation, but future generations. All of the last week of the Supreme Court decisions, they brought down a couple, the unions, the gerrymandering, travel ban. They were all 5-4, party lines. They are all partisan votes. That's not the way America should be working, okay? We can't be looking at, I'm looking up, the health status of all the left-leaning Supreme Court justices because I'm afraid that we're going to be screwed. Let me explain to you something. If Trump gets another Supreme Court, first of all, Neil Gorsuch being on the Supreme Court is already us looking at people the GOP is doing the Fortnite dance on us right now. They got the L on the head and they're dancing around and we're just holding that L. Holding more L's than a box of alphabet cereal that was recalled because it only had L's. I don't know. My metaphor game isn't good today. Anyway, Neil Gorsuch should not have been named. Merrick Garland should have been named. And since Trump has a back channel to Kennedy, that should have been his... He could name Kennedy's replacement. Give us Garland! Mitch McConnell said one of the proudest moments in his political history was blocking Barack Obama from naming that Supreme Court justice. What kind of a sick masochist fuck are you, man? One of your proudest moments was literally holding up democracy. Literally standing in the way of democratic institutions that have been going on for 200 fucking years. Are you kidding me? And again, I will say it again, because last week I apologized, and I'll apologize again. I'm cursing a little more recently. And maybe that's because I'm not in school, so I don't have to, like, watch my mouth. Maybe it's because I'm just really mad. But there is no chance that the Democrats could allow this man to name a second Supreme Court justice that would give them they're already voting 5-4, but Kennedy voted for gay rights and stuff, gay marriage, and there was something else. Like, they're gonna roll back Roe v. Wade. They're gonna roll back abortion. You can't get an abortion. And hey, you know those states with legal pot? Bye! Oh, well, Jay, they can't just take it away. They can't? What is this, they can't? What do you mean they can't? How many times since November 2016 have the words they can't been uttered before something they did happened? Don't tell me that they can't. We're screwed, man. And I read somewhere, and I'm not sure if you can actually do this, but there is something, because before every vote on the Senate floor, there's a procedural vote. Like, there's a roll call to see if everyone's here, who's here to participate. If no Democrat shows up, then they can't even have the vote. That's an underhanded tactic, that's a shady tactic, but you know what? Gloves off. We've been playing nice for too long. Barack Obama's biggest downfall, while I thought he was an amazing American president, maybe not the greatest of all time, but probably the greatest in my lifetime, not probably. The greatest in my lifetime. The thing about Barack Obama is he was civil with Mitch McConnell. He tried to make compromises and meet in the middle. And that was his problem. And that's why the Affordable Care Act was so easily stripped down to its bare bones. That's why all of his policies are being rolled back. Because because he's a normal person. He doesn't want to be a partisan guy. He wants to be an American guy. But people are choosing party over country. And it's just not right. And let me tell you one thing. There cannot be a single Democrat, if they hold this vote, the only way they're getting this vote is 51-49. There is not. If I see Joe Manchin on television again talking Republican, we're gonna vote him out. There is no playing nice with Trump. There is no, okay, I'm a Democrat, but I'm gonna go talk. No! We don't do that! He's a criminal! And let's just go about, okay, step back. Greg Olear, Dirty Rubles, an introduction to Trump Russia. I had him on my podcast 2 weeks ago on the Jay Parks podcast. We spoke for an hour, in depth, about this. Think about Trump Russia for a second. Think about the ongoing investigation. Think about if November comes and the Democrats take the House. Then they bring up articles of impeachment. Think about that. And let's just say they're wondering, can a sitting president be prosecuted? That goes to the Supreme Court for the final decision. That's the highest court in the land. So, you're going to have the investigation into Trump decided by where there's going to be 10 people or 9 people, and 2 of them have been appointed directly by Trump. You know, and I bet that he didn't say, all right, just do your job. They gave loyalty oaths. That's what he makes you do. They probably signed NDAs too, for all I know. They probably got paid their $130,000 and got spanked with a Forbes magazine and peed on in a Russian hotel room. I mean, honestly, this is way beyond the pale. This is way beyond the pale here. Because I was watching Hallie Jackson when the Supreme Court session ended. And when it ended, she said there's no announcements of retirements. So it looks as if there is not going to be anyone retiring. There's not going to be any vacancies. That's what it appears to be. And then we went out and we went to Pizza Hut. And we're pulling into Pizza Hut and I see Justice Anthony Kennedy to retire from the Supreme. Are you kidding? Who got to him? Who got to Kennedy? Between the time that I saw Hallie Jackson go off the air and the Supreme Court set and the session for the Supreme Court ended, what changed? Who got to this guy and told him, hey, you know, it would be a good idea if you retired right now. Trump would like that. Who got to him? You joking? And did you read the Sotomayor and Ginsburg dissent? Like, did you read that? I mean, come on, from the Muslim ban? And listen, I don't like the system. Let's change it. If there is one thing we can all agree on, I mean, seriously, honestly, we cannot sit here and think that it's actually normal for us to only allow like one party to name Supreme Court justices. I don't care how many elections you win. We need to have a system where you name this one, I name the next one. You name this one, I name the next one. Because, like, at what point, like, Trump is a career criminal, right? So at what point does, you know, how do we know the Russian mafia doesn't get to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know? And hit her with some Sergei Skripal nerve gas. We don't know! These people conspired against the United States to destroy democracy. Don't tell me that they won't result to underhanded tactics. They will. So that's what we have to do too. And we also need to go after, and if you're somebody who's on social media, you need to go after, not go after, you need to pressure Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, Republican senators who are women. You need to pressure them and let them know that women's rights, a woman's right to choose what she does with her body, has nothing to do, should have nothing to do with the decision making of any man. No man! No man with man organs, with man sex organs, no man should ever in life, be deciding what women do with their body and their choices they make. And Roe v. Wade is going down. That's a campaign issue for them. So that means, just think about it this way. Alright, let's just say you're really into God, you know? Let's just say you're really against abortion. Listen, I'm not saying yay abortion, you know what I'm saying? But there are circumstances where it's not in the best interest of anybody to force somebody to have a baby. And I will give you an example, a made-up example, but an example that, you know, I am positive has happened. Because listen, not every place is New York, not every place is California. Down south, middle America, there's still some shady stuff going on. So like, let's just say you live in Alabama and you got some fucked up family, right? Now let's just say your uncle gets wasted, right? And let's just say you're a 13-year-old girl and your uncle gets wasted and he rapes you. And he rapes you, commits freaking... Let's just say you get raped by your drunk uncle, and then you're not going to be allowed to have an abortion. You're going to have that incest baby who's going to grow up with all sorts of problems as a 13-year-old. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I get accidents happen. And listen, you know, you should use protection and stuff like that and all that. I get it. But, like, accidents happen. Women get forced to do things against their will because it starts at the top. And this guy grabs him by the you-know-what. And he makes it okay for people to think that it's okay to not understand what the word no means. And you're putting women in a situation where, you know, they're going to be forced to have babies that they don't want. And when that happens, like, society will change. You can't, alright, so you can't have, imagine, 16-year-old mom accidentally gets knocked, like, 16-year-old, you know, party freak, you know, accidentally gets knocked up And she has to have that baby. So now she sits at home and she stares at that baby all day. And they're both fucking miserable. And she's miserable for having it. Do you want a parent? Do you want any parent in the world to look at their child and resent it? And I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying yay abortions. But there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place where a woman's right to choose is something that is needed. Okay? And you can't for a second tell me that Donald fucking Trump should have the decision of, you know, putting a vote in to get rid of Roe v. Wade. I know Susan Collins says it's established law. That's nice. You better not confirm that Supreme Court justice. A Supreme Court justice cannot be confirmed until this investigation is over, because this investigation is going to go to the Supreme Court, and you can't have Trump naming judge. You can't name your own judge. That's not a thing. So all the articles this week are saying that Mueller is speeding up the investigation, and he's accelerating it, looking into, there was a bunch of Russian and we're going to talk about this on the Jay Porks podcast. We have a lot of this going on. There was a lot of Russian oligarchs involved at the Trump inauguration and the after party, and we're going to talk about that on the Jay Porks podcast coming up on Monday. We're also going to talk about a lot of more corruption going on. We're going to talk about a stupid thing Betsy DeVos said. Oh, we're going to talk about Betsy DeVos saying that schools are allowed to call ICE on students. Schools are going to be allowed to call ICE on students. You know what we're also going to talk about on Monday? We're going to talk about Mr. Crowley. Dun, dun, dun. Fam, what an upset that was. But not as big of an upset as you think. Just the tides are changing. And we got to get through this. Jay Porks. Dyze in your house.